Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Made of Things podcast. I am your host, Antonio Maria Correia. This time on the show, we have Don Richard. But before we get to our guest, I should take a minute to address the low episode rate at which we've been doing Made of Things this year. This is not a funny introduction to the episode, so I'm just going to keep it short. I currently have a hand injury due to excessive video editing last year. I might even be undergoing surgery for it in a couple of months. This is sort of a carpal tunnel syndrome of sorts. It's more complicated than that, but whatever. I have been getting better in recent times, but this has also meant that I've been unable to edit shows, and this podcast in particular, as often and as many episodes as I want to. But there are reasons to be confident, as we've already recorded over 15 to 16 or 17 maybe more episodes, and that means 15, 16, 17 more guests, all of which really good. I just recently got back from Primavera Sound, both in Barcelona and Porto, and on those alone we did about 8 more guests, and we're nearing festival season, which means we definitely have a long way to go as a show. So no ends apparently at sight. I'll just keep doing this show until the world loves it. Really, that's my resolve. And I don't usually do this, but on the next show or two, not only will I address what happened at this year's editions of both Primavera Sounds, or both editions of Primavera Sound, as I will tell you which guests we're going to have on Made of Things. This is actually something I'm going to do, and the ones I've recorded so far, so obviously. So look forward to that if you like spoilers, I guess. On the show this time, we have Don Richard, who just played in Lisbon a couple of weeks ago at ZDB. If you're not aware of Don Richard, here is her quick backstory of sorts. So basically, she came up about 10 years ago on an MTV show called Making the Band, which was curated by Sean Combs, who is mostly known as Puff Daddy or P. Diddy or Diddy or whatever else. She was one of the final girls which formed the girl band Danity Kane, going on to join Diddy or P. Diddy or Sean Combs or whatever on Diddy-dirty Money, and from this more mainstream background she started doing way more freeform art than what is usually done in mainstream music. Not that mainstream artists still don't have really unusual and groundbreaking art, which they do if you pay enough attention and aren't prejudiced, because that's not my point at all with this conversation. But Don is doing way more independent music, I guess individually, even with this DIY ethos. On this episode, that is mostly what we covered. Again, this is not funny, I know, but the conversation is really funny actually, so I really love Don, and we'll dive straight into my conversation with Don Richard. Was lit. That was insane.
Amazing. Yes, that crowd was awesome. I didn't even know what to expect because I've never been here before. So I didn't know if it was going to be a small crowd or if they even knew who I was, because I've sold here, but I've never actually done it live. And wow, I'm so honored. It's one of our bigger crowds. So yeah.
People were basically hysterical. Not hysterical, in hysteria.
Yeah. I mean, jumping up the whole time. No one ever stopped dancing, which is what you want. Yeah.
These are high octane shows. Like you must have like your cardio and up to date, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, actually, I build that structure in behind me. I build that triangle and take it down. So stamina and energy, I don't even know how I'm doing it, because we do everything. It's kind of a DIY kind of situation where we do everything ourselves. But when you see a crowd like that, it makes you feel like you can keep going because they're so supportive. I mean, because we never really do a slow record. It's all like high energy. Yeah.
Is that what made you kind of go DIY? Like I don't know.
From a major label.
We'll get to that later. There's plenty
Yeah,
there's plenty of that. I'm sure you
Yeah.
get it all the time. But still, it's funny that DIY is usually connected to punk and small shows and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it's really cool that you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
It's really really awesome.
Thank you so much. I've dealt with mainstream before. I was built, and I started my career with a major label with a machine, and it was amazing. It was great, but it was constricting as far as your creative. You couldn't do the things that you wanted to do, and I appreciated that journey, but I, as a kid, loved the DIYs. You know what I mean? I had my favorite show was Green Day. My first show was Green Day. I grew up on garage bands, so like I loved rock growing up. So Biff Naked, one of these like a Canadian kind of punk indie band, was one of my favorite bands. So I promised myself if I ever got the opportunity, I would move that way because I appreciated that style, and I felt like it was authentic and that the fan base was cult-like, like they stayed with you through it all. And I prefer the person that seeks you out rather you force feeding them.
Oh,
You
that's
know?
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And plus, actually, so when did Green Day hit you? I think I liked Green Day like the Dookie phase for a week,
Yeah.
maybe or 2 weeks,
Yeah.
until I don't for some reason I just felt I'm not this is not for me.
Brain Stew was what introduced me as a kid. But after that, I started falling in love with the Cranberries, Live, Soundgarden, Portishead, like really like different, not different, but just that was, of course, the Sugar Cubes with Bjork, and then Bjork later going out for her, by herself. Loved Chris Cunningham and as a director when he was doing FX Twin, like that was kind of my. That's what I loved, and when I got into pop culture and tried out for making the band with P Diddy, I don't know, I had all these great ideas, and they were kind of, I don't think they would have fit in that girl group that I had at the time. So I had to kind of do what I needed to do with that, and then when I had the opportunity and the breadcrumbs and the knowledge that I had, apply it to my own company and my own business. Yeah.
Sure. So you mean that's you obviously have an artistic vision, and well, if you're influenced by all that cool stuff, I mean, it's actually this is for a show called Made of Things, and I should go there now, and I should ask you like, okay, so what are the things that made you? So you would you say it's Green Day that was like the trigger for you to dedicate yourself to art for some reason, like you're dedicating yourself to what you're doing now, and what triggered that? What made you go, I need to do music for as long as possible?
My father and my mother. My mother has she owns a dancing school. She's a dancer. She taught me dance and put me on to the Nichols Brothers and Baryshnikov, who was one of my favorite dancers. And then my dad is a musician. He's classically trained. He can play piano, and his influence to me with Debussy, Claire de Lune is one of my favorite records. So I was introduced in that sense, and that's what inspired me to want to do music. But I think the moment I realized who Gustav Klimt was, and I realized the artistic vision in Judith, and I was inspired by just the idea of taking your art to the next level, whatever that may be. And I thought it would be really cool if I could take what I knew and my inspiration from dance, what I loved about Baryshnikov, what I loved about the Nichols Brothers, took what I loved from the gold flakes that Gustav Klimt created that made him his own thing, and then take the inspiration of what Bjork was, and musically what that aesthetic was. I could maybe come up with something really amazing. And I took the things that inspired me from those places and I just made them me. You know what I mean? I took them and I said, okay, how does this apply to myself? These things inspire me. How do I inspire my own way? And that's kind of how I got it. It necessarily wasn't an artist. It was one of more or less. It wasn't a musician that inspired me. It was more of the arts itself, the liberal arts itself.
For sure. Oh, totally. Can totally be just like whatever.
No, I'm just saying, like, you would think that it would be musicians, and I have an affinity for music, of course, because I grew up loving music, but I think it was the sense of the arts in general. And coming from New Orleans, if you've ever been to Louisiana or New Orleans, Louisiana, you know that music is huge in the culture, from Fats Domino to Dr. John, like this kind of brass band, Zydeco music, soul, and blues, all kind of derived from Louisiana. So New Orleans is kind of like music in itself. So it was kind of undeniable that I would have a passion for it. Yeah,
cool. Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. Do you think that's the case with like, I don't know, I'm assuming, even though when you assume you make an ass out of Hume.
We make asses out of ourselves every day. So I don't think,
Hume.
yeah, we would make asses out of ourselves every day. So I don't think you can go assume away. You assume away.
I'll make myself an ass out of myself all I can all the time. No,
It's totally fine. When you make an ass of yourself, you actually learn something. I've made so.
But you put yourself on the line,
Yeah,
right?
And trust me, I've been an ass a couple of times, but it's made me better for
Who
it.
hasn't? You have to.
And you can't take yourself seriously. I mean, you take your art seriously, but you have to laugh. You have to figure it out. You have to try new things. You have to look crazy. You have to bend and be uncomfortable. And when you do that, you find beautiful things about you that you never found would be there. Yeah.
And do you think that's one of the main, I'm not sure. I actually know how kind of the mainstream industry of music works, but not in terms of the place where you were at.
Yeah.
So do you think that sometimes people take themselves too seriously over there, or is it not the case so much?
No, they take money seriously. It's numbers and dollars in that business. They care about the art, but I think they care more about the numbers and the money that they'll make in the process. That's beautiful in business, but you still have to understand that there has to be an appreciation of the art. You're still selling the art. If you lose the fact that you're selling that, if you lose the sight that the art is the most important thing, you'll start selling something that has less value, and you're trying to force something on people that isn't worth its value. I think it's okay to care about the dollars and the numbers, but as long as the art is up to par with the dollars, it's okay, Yeah.
I don't think there's any necessary conclusion looking at the landscape of what we have today, because thankfully there's a lot of room for a lot of stuff.
There's room for everyone, and because of social media and technology, it allows that open door. And I think that's what fans themselves have to be comfortable with. I think they're so busy concentrating on one fave, and one artist that they love, that they're missing out on the fact that there can be many. And I think once we open our minds to the fact that there can be all of us in this lane, I think we'll make for a beautiful pot of diversity in music and art. Yeah.
There's no real competition, really.
Your competition is yourself.
It's not sports.
Well, people think that. Everyone's trying to be number one. I just want to make great music. You can have the number one shit. I never really cared about that. What I would like to do is sit in my little lane and fucking make people dance like they did tonight. If I can do that, if they can buy my music on iTunes right now, if they can see the videos that I just released. I literally just released a VR piece it's like I'm one of the first artists to be a part of that movement, of the virtual reality movement. And I just released that with Wired magazine.
I don't even know how that works.
Yeah,
I just watched Warcraft with 3D glass. It's good, isn't it?
So good.
It's really actually pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome, and VR is opening a whole new lane in gaming and in technology, period. And it's very new in music videos. And so for me to be an indie artist with no machine doing it is quite amazing, and I think it shows to indie artists out there that you can be up on the pulse. And it also shows brands that you don't have to look for the bigger artists. There are smaller artists that are doing some really innovative things. So there's a lane for everybody, and I think what we're doing is really cool, and we're sitting out in our little spot and having fun with it. We're not taking it too seriously. We're trying to figure out how we can move ahead and be ahead and do some really cool things. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, but in the process it's fucking fun. It's so fun. Yeah.
How's it like? I have no idea.
The
process of doing something in VR.
Oh man, it's tedious and ridiculous. It took us 3 months to do, especially when you don't have a big machine behind you. Like, usually VR is working with the larger brands, and here we came with this little small fish, in a big pond, trying to come up with an idea artistically of putting CGI, dance, and fashion in the VR world. And what we came up with is the Not Above That record, VR, that's out right now, and it is amazing, and it is so new and so refreshing. And I mean, I'm very proud of it. Very proud of it. We released a fashion video, which was Wake Up, and then we released the VR piece kind of in the same 2 weeks. Okay. So we've got like 2 videos out, an EP out with Kingdom, which is Fade to Mine, with Infrared EP. We have another song with Adult Swim.
Yeah, I was just told that. I didn't know, because I'm a huge Adult Swim fan.
I'm a nerd Adult Swim fan. Like, I'm livid. Like, I love Adult Swim.
I was there from the beginning. Yeah. I'm still from the Space Coast to Coast days and come back in Cartoon Network.
Absolutely.
We're about the same age. So.
Yeah, and so
it's not common in Portugal, though, because no one knew.
Oh, my God.
Because like in 2001 and 2002, 2003, you might be able to tell from my accent, even though I've never been to the U.S., that I've been kind of informed, not by myself, but just our mutual love of Adult Swim, like C-Lab 2021. Absolutely. It's insane.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
Aqua Teens and Metalocalypse.
Yay.
Oh, I love you too. Brack Show.
Yes. I've loved Adult Swim from the beginning. Those are fucking classics. And I've always wanted to work with them, and Jason was amazing enough to want to work with me, and I've been with them for 2 years now. I've curated a few. Jason DeMarco, he works with Adult Swim. And he was able to not only help me do the singles program with them, but I've curated commercials that'll be on the show as well. So it's one of those things where that's another side project that I really love. So I've got all that going on, and plus doing this live tour situation. So again, all that to say, there is lanes for everybody, and we're just, again, trying to show the world a different side of the artistic world, showing them that it doesn't have to be a machine to be just as successful. Yeah.
So, but with Adult Swim, you're doing just the music videos for your work, or is it like a co-op for like with the show? Because for instance,
I would love to do a series with them at some point, but right now it's just commercials, and then they do a singles program where they ask multiple artists to do their singles for each year. So I have that, and it's called Serpentine Fire, and that came out last week with Adult Swim. And then on top of that, I did commercials curated, animated commercials curated by me for them. So it's 2 different projects for Adult Swim, but the hope is, again, to work on a series project with them. I would really love to have my own series with Adult Swim. That would be really awesome.
You're putting it out there, so it might happen.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, then cool, we tried, man. I mean, hey, that's the only way. I'll make an ass of myself trying.
But I'll be the exactly. Or the Yumi, or whatever you want to make.
It'll be so worth it. You know, it's so worth it. This is some cool stuff, and I think we're breaking barriers with the perception of what an artist or an indie artist is supposed to be.
And I was asking because, for instance, Dan Deacon does Off the Air. Well, with he told me about a year ago. He told me that I do stuff, and then there's this visual artist that does like whatever he wants, basically, and then colors my videos pretty much. So I was asking if that was something along the same lines.
No, it's a bit different. It's a bit different. The videos that we do are for my album. They're not for Adult Swim. Adult Swim is like actual commercials that are spots. So they're like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, and they're curated just for like the in-between of the shows on Adult Swim.
Okay. And another thing I was told, because I wasn't really aware, even though there are clues, is that, for instance, in '86, you quote Peter Gabriel. Yeah. Okay. So, my dude, since I was born, like I loved Sledgehammer, and then went on to love early Genesis. Yeah. So I heard you are into prog, really. Yeah. Are you? Yeah. What sort of prog? I'm dead curious.
No, listen. So I grew up loving all things, and I kind of slipped up on it in college, and I didn't know much about it. And then as I kind of progressed, there was this kind of ghetto goth world that kind of introduced me to prog, and I was kind of like, this could be great. And I kind of learned and fell in love with it, but I'm not like I don't know a lot to it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not testing you.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I just dipped into it, and
it's tough to remember though. Yeah. I was for like 3 or 4 months ago, I was interviewing one of my favorite bands, which is King Crimson, and I was interviewing Pat for this show, with a drummer since '94 or something, exactly, since '93, '94, did work with Sylvian and stuff like that with Robert Fripp. And I was mentioning stuff to him, and because some instrumental pieces are kind of not similar, but well in the same vein, sometimes you don't remember the names of stuff, so I misquoted some stuff. So it happens, it's okay. And even himself said, well, it's fine, because sometimes we ourselves even just don't know the names of stuff.
Yeah, I don't, like, I was introduced to it through college. I didn't, like, I wasn't
start listening to it daily, on a daily basis.
And I wasn't, but I do have an appreciation and affinity, and just like prog, I have an affinity for Afro-Cuban. I have like Lionel Lewicki is one of my favorites. He's an African guitarist who was amazing, and I've kind of fallen in love with him and his sound. And it's just, there are a lot of things that I grab from that have inspired me in that sound throughout my culture that I appreciate, that I'll add and influence. And then poetry and sonnets, and from Shakespeare to William Blake to, like, it goes on and on from these different places that I get derivatives from, that I like build from. So I don't know them all, but I do have, I'll listen to it and pass it by and say, now this this is key, this is amazing, and then I'll apply it.
I went by my whole life till now, basically just, well, Shakespeare is a classic, which you sometimes do. Shakespeare is amazing, and I just got into it.
Yeah.
It's really current.
Yeah, no, I was always.
I just got into it last year or something.
Yeah, no,
I watched the 12th Night being performed.
It's great. The Wake Up video that I did was a play off of Midsummer's Night Dream.
I haven't gotten into that.
It's Hamlet, like. You know, I'm a Poe fan. I love Poe as well. Hemingway, I love, and you'll see it in my music. They're kind of like spread out. My grandmother was a librarian. She had a PhD in library science. So I grew up around books. So
having access to culture.
Wild, like these were like influences in my life. Yeah, Hemingway, yeah.
And it's funny because if you have early access or access to culture early on, then you can you can develop certain sensibilities with certain things that most people don't know, and then eventually you'll become a creative weirdo, more or less.
That's about me in a nutshell, a creative weirdo. Like, I mean, I guess I didn't know any
in the best of senses.
In the best of ways, absolutely. I don't know. I just kind of grew up loving the smell of library books, which could make me definitely a weirdo. But
there's a lot of charm to that.
Yeah, there's an affinity and an appreciation for the way a story is told. I loved mythology as well, and if you listen to The Golden Heart, it's very much a play off of Odysseus and the Iliad and the Odyssey and Calypso and the story of Titans. There's a lot of play on mythology, and again, that was me as a kid with my nose in books, being inspired by that whole thing and going through life and feeling the connection between the industry and now and the monsters that Odysseus fought in that process.
So there's definitely a lot of characters in terms of connection.
Absolutely. For sure. I'm a big nerd, basically. I'm a geek.
That's awesome. Those are the best. I mean, come on. There's a whole.
There's no clothes.
We're in a generation.
That's awesome. I'm a geek. That's always naked. Yeah.
But we're basically in a generation that got that through the barrier of being some certain tolerance, right? Because it was hard coming up. Like kids are like, oh, I'm a nerd. And it's cool to be a nerd. But back in the day, we kind of had it hard.
We had it hard. I kind of split those lines. I was really secret about that side of my life. I was always I kept that to myself. That was kind of my escape. So people didn't even really know how much of a nerd I was, except for my parents, because that was when I went home, that was my haven. At school I was kind of the cheerleader girl, that girl, but at home I was like, I just want to be this. And it kind of developed as I got older, and now I realized, this is my opportunity to really be the kid that I wanted to be when I was behind closed doors, Yeah.
Did you perform a lot in front of the mirror and stuff? Did you act out stuff? Because I did.
I didn't even have time for that, dude. My parents were so militant. Me and my brother were like soldier kids. I danced, so I had an opportunity to perform. My mom, I started when I was 2, and I didn't stop. So I don't know, I got a chance to perform and do performance arts my whole life. So I got to perform in that way, but I never thought it would be a job. I always thought I would be a marine biologist. I went to school for it. I graduated with a degree in marketing and marine science. So I never would have thought that I'd do music as a career.
You probably got this question from people over here because, well, the Azores or the Açores in Portuguese, are a group of islands that has a lot of rich biology. Have you ever heard anything particular about that?
No, I haven't.
Apparently it's becoming the trend. Marine biology gets trendy in a way.
It wasn't trendy when I was in school, but that's pretty awesome. It
has trends within.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I would love to. I'm certified in scuba diving, so I'd love to see more of the coral reef, and I'd love to see what's down there and what they have, because that's always been, I would love that, but I haven't heard anything.
I've never been, actually. It's a crime. It's a national crime. I've never been over there.
It's a national crime to dive there?
No, it's a national crime not to go.
Oh, not to go.
I'm speaking metaphorically.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I have to. Then I will, because that's when I like to do my pastime. My concentration was in dolphins and manatees. So I'd love to,
Manatees are the best.
They're killed by boats. It's a whole thing, because they can't move, so they get a lot of the bottom of the boats. They get caught underneath and get killed. But
apparently get distracted very easily. And just like move to
Go
whatever.
into it. Yeah, and then get
Move
yeah.
towards whatever is moving.
Get killed,
And
but
we're having a great conversation, and all of a sudden we're talking about this tragedy.
yeah. Sorry again. Sorry.
How are we in time? 20. Okay, so we'll have a little.
we're like
It's because it's just flowing.
It's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, sorry.
Fantastic. But okay, so I should go. What we can expect for the next era?
The Red Era is coming out this fall. We've got another single coming in 2 weeks. It never stops. And then we have the 2D companion video that's coming out in the next week for the VR video. So we have a VR video and then the 2D companion.
Oh,
so it's two different videos from the same song.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so that'll be 3 videos from one record.
And what do you plan to go somewhere emotionally different in this record, or?
But this record is not above that. That's going to be the same record that I perform here. We did a lyric video, we did the VR piece, and there'll be a 2D companion. Then the next record that comes in 2 weeks is kind of an ode to, I won't say, but it's more of a vibe, and it's a summer record. Like, it really feels good, and we're gonna take the momentum into a really good place, and we're gonna have a video for that as well. So we're moving pretty quick. We've got a lot of music, and then we're getting ready for the end of this tour, and then looking for fall to tour with the album.
Okay. I've never asked anyone this in particular, but when should I post this then? Because when would it be cool for you?
I'm easy. Yeah.
Okay, even if it's like in the next month, is it cool, or is it like if it should we because of the
800 projects by then? So just keep it's totally fine.
I'm asking because of that.
Yeah, we'll have 1,000 projects. It'll be great.
Okay, sure, fantastic. Oh, well, I'll post this next week or something.
Good.
Okay, cool. This was lovely.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
This is awesome. Welcome back. I loved that. I just loved meeting Don. That was amazing. This episode will have a video edit up on YouTube, which you can subscribe to. It's just Made of Things Podcast. Very easy to find. But remember to type in podcast because it's a trigger word. And we are also... Trigger words mean something else, actually. But still, we are also on Instagram and Twitter and WordPress, where you can download all the episodes, episodes. This is brilliant. And there's always iTunes. And that's it. No more social media this week. That's enough. And I've been doing more of that recently, as you may have found. Hopefully, if you want to check out what I'm up to, I just interviewed Jamie Cullum professionally for another place last night. It was really fun. And I hope you loved Don Richard as much as I did. And that was quite a lot. Goodbyes!